لا يسمعون فيها لغوا ولا تأثيما إلا قيلا سلاما سلاما. وأصحاب اليمين ما أصحاب اليمين في سدر مخضود وطلح منضود وظل ممدود وماء مسكوب وفاكهة كثيرة لا مقطوعة ولا ممنوعة وفرش مرفوعة. إنا أنشأناهن إنشاء فجعلناهن أبكارا عربا أترابا لأصحاب اليمين ثلة من الأولين وثلة من الآخرين. وأصحاب الشمال ما أصحاب الشمال في سموم وحميم وظل من يحموم لا بارد ولا كريم. إنهم كانوا قبل ذلك مترفين وكانوا يصرون على الحنث العظيم وكانوا يقولون أئذا متنا وكنا ترابا وعظاما أئنا لمبعوثون أو آباؤنا الأولون. قل إن الأولين والآخرين لمجموعون إلى ميقات يوم معلوم. ثم إنكم أيها الضالون المكذبون لآكلون من شجر من زقوم فمالئون منها البطون فشاربون عليه من الحميم فشاربون شرب الهيم هذا نزلهم يوم الدين. نحن خلقناكم فلولا تصدقون نحن خلقناكم فلولا تصدقون. Inshallah, we invest in those minutes until the Shaykh arrives. With the best thing that we can say is send our peace and blessings on our Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So if you count on your fingers as many times as you can, Allahumma salli wa sallim wa barik ala sayyidina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam tasliman kathira.
السلام عليكم.
الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله حي على الصلاة حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح حي على الفلاح الله أكبر الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله
إن الحمد لله ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا. يهدي الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له. وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله. ونصلي ونسلم عليه وعلى آل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين وعلى أصحابه بجهدهم وتضحيتهم قام هذا الدين فرضي الله عنهم أجمعين. Last time when we met, we were talking about the principle of da'wah, how da'wah is not just trying to convert people to Islam, but da'wah is building ourselves as a community as well as calling people to Islam. So the Muslim should understand his and her identity very clearly. Once there's confusion in who you are as a Muslim, then what you begin to see is that you don't know what direction to go in. You don't know what your place is in the world. You don't know how to deal with other people. You don't know how to make decisions for your benefit. And we said before that the deen is for you. Allah tabaraka wa ta'ala huwa al-ghani wa nahnu al-fuqara. We're the ones that need Allah tabaraka wa ta'ala. Allah doesn't need us. We have to be clear on that. Another thing that is important to understand is that you have to come into Islam with knowledge and by your choices. Nobody can force you to practice the deen at the end of the day, especially in this environment. But there's two things that we want to continue on with regard to the da'wah so that we understand ourselves as a community and what our role is. We have an ayat of the Quran, كنتم خير أمة أخرجت للناس تأمرون بالمعروف وتنحون عن المنكر وتؤمنون بالله. This ayat is known. And then we have another ayat, يا أيها الذين آمنوا عليكم أنفسكم. So in the first ayat, Allah is describing all of us as that community which is supposed to be the community which strives after that which is good, that which is beneficial. We've turned that into something else. We've turned that into an issue of whatever ideas that we have of the deen, and then we're forcing it on the people. That's not the meaning there. The meaning is that we have to always be pursuing and looking for that which is good and that which is beneficial. Some things that we call ma'roof, and the concept of ma'roof comes back to custom, what's in the society, is not always good. Some of our cultural practices, they're not always good. That's why it's important for the Muslim to be a thinking Muslim. The Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, when he began to teach the Muslims in the early generations, he took a people that was confused about themselves and their place in the world, and they became the best community. It's a process. We are in a situation where when we talk about what's good and what's bad, sometimes we're confused, especially when it comes to the issue of our youth. This one is a bad youth. This one is a good youth. People in general, this is a bad person. This is a good person. That's not going to help us. Because sometimes people do bad things because they don't understand how to deal with their situation. They don't understand how to deal with their troubles. We're the ones as a community, especially the parents. We're the ones that are supposed to be teaching our youth how it is that they're going to navigate, how it is that they're going to function. Because our youth are in situations where they have to make decisions which are complicated. So we have some youth, for instance, that are struggling with some issues. How do we deal with the situation? Do we label them because they're not obedient to us? Or do we study the situation to see what it is that's going on, to see how it is that we're going to deal with that situation? It could be anything. It could be a youth that's struggling in school. How do we label that youth? This one is not as smart as this one. It could be a youth that's struggling with drugs. How do we label that youth? This is a bad youth. Or do we try to go to the core of the issue and try to understand what it is that's going on? We have to go to the core of the issue to understand what's going on. Labeling the people is not going to help us. If we say that we're their ummah that's described in the Quran, تَأْمُرُونَ بِالْمَعْرُوفِ وَتَنْهَوْنَ عَنِ الْمُنكَرِ, we have to know what it is that is the munkar. We have to know what it is that is the ma'roof. That's important. There's some ways that we do parenting that are not good parenting styles. It doesn't matter what we did in the culture. It doesn't matter what was done in another country. It doesn't matter how it was done 500 years ago. We have to find the best ways to be able to deal with the situation right now in the situation that we're in. And there are some realities at the end of the day that we can't control. That's why the Quran says, يَا أَيُّهَا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا عَلَيْكُمْ أَنفُسَكُمْ. If you yourself are not in a position where you understand what is good decision making or what's beneficial or what's harmful, like we have been talking about this in in the previous khutbah, then you're going to drown in what's going on around us because we don't have a community that is making clear what is beneficial or what is harmful. There's a lot of confusion in that regard. That's why our youth are struggling with the culture out there. They're struggling with being in the masjid. They're struggling with what's going on in the families. We have situations in our community that things happen to certain people, and what we're doing is we're judging. Well, this one is good or this one is bad. It has nothing to do with good or bad. It has to do with the issue of how is it that we're going to address our situation to better our condition. We have to have that mindset that is hopeful. We have to have that mindset which is looking at how to solve our problems, not drown in our problems. We have to have that mindset which is solution oriented. There's some situations that you have friends that what it is that they're doing is something that you can't control. You have to know that if you get involved with that group or that friend and it's beyond where you should be, that is going to be destructive. That's extremely important. That's why we find that the Quran is giving us that principle. Mind your business. Meaning, look at yourself and what it is that you need to do. Be clear in your life as to what it is that you need to do. من حسن إسلام المرء تركه ما لا يعنيه. Like the hadith says. The hadith is saying that a good understanding of you being a Muslim is that you know what you have to do. You know what your priorities are. You know what's in your capacity. And we said this before, we'll say it again. Many of our young boys need a sense of direction. We said that before. There's an inequality between the boys and the girls as far as where it is that they're going with life. Time is extremely short, especially for the high school students. You have to plan what direction is that you're going in your life. You can't afford to be confused about that situation. Because by the time it comes to the issue of you getting married, if you are confused about what is your purpose in life, what direction is that you're going in life, you're not going to be ready for that next stage of your life. If you didn't know what was beneficial for you with regard to how it is that you use your time and who it is that you're spending time with and what it is that you're doing, your life is just going away. And then that means that you're in a situation where you're only harming yourself. And it's the same thing when we talk about parenting. Parenting in today's time is not like parenting when it was in the past. It's not sufficient just to bring home the money to make sure that everything is taken care of. And we have to emphasize this over and over again. Why? Because there's such a misunderstanding between parents and their children that everybody is what? In their own corner. So how is it that we can say, كنتم خير أمة أخرجت للناس تأمرون بالمعروف وتنهون عن المنكر? When we're not clear what it is that the ma'ruf is. The only way that we will be able to implement this ayah is when our family life is one which is healthy, is one which is stable. But when our family life is a life in which there's chaos inside of it. I don't get involved with my cousins because my cousins, they have XYZ going on. Cynthia is mad at me because I didn't do what she wanted me to do. And the reason I didn't do what she wanted me to do is because her and my mom, they have issues with each other. So what we find is that even within the family life itself, we don't have an understanding for each other. We're not supporting each other to the extent that we need to. So what is it that happens? We begin to rely on those outside of our families. And when we rely on those outside of our families, if they're not giving us the advice that's beneficial, and we don't know how to take care of our own affairs, they're going to influence us in many different ways. Allahu A'lam what direction it is that we go in. So we have to be very clear on what is our purpose in life. And my suggestion to the young men is that you stop for a minute. And the young girls, you stop for a minute and you take account of your life. What are the goals that you want to have for your life? What direction is it that you're going in? How is it that you use your time on a daily basis? How is it that you're developing yourself? Why? And because we mentioned this before. If you don't know how to use your time correctly and you're using it in the wrong way, that is what leads to depression. That is what leads to not being able to sit still. That's what leads to not being happy a little bit. But when you're focused and you have goals and you know what direction to go in, you don't have time to be thinking in that way. You're focused on your goals. You're focused on what direction it is that you're going in. And that's what we mean by mind your business. You're minding your business, what it is that you have to do at the moment. And the same thing with parents. Take account of how much time do I spend with my children? What is the means? What are the different ways that I'm trying to reach them and understand them as they want to be understood, not as we want them to be? Because we will not have an ummah if there is no family. The ummah is based on the foundation of the family. And that family, to be a Muslim family, has to have certain characteristics. Of the characteristics that it has to have in it is the issue of love, is the issue of understanding, is the issue of mercy and compassion. It has to be the best family because you're the best people. You have to be the best nation because the Quran has described you as the best nation. But just saying we're the best nation is not going to work. The best nation requires that we act like the best nation on every front. And we mentioned this before. Whatever it is that we do, we have to be the best. Whether it's in engineering or in business or in medicine or in education. We have to be the best community. And that means that we have to study what is in our interest. We have to have the best families. We can't afford to be that type of ummah, which we have problems, and what do? What is the jinn? The problems that are there is because of the jinn. Or somebody put sihr on me. This is superstitious. Many of the times the problems that we have nothing to do with the jinn or have nothing to do with superstition. They have to do that we are not taking care of ourselves. They have to do that we're not cooperating with each other. They have to do with we're not clear on how it is to move forward. We have brothers that don't take care of their sisters. And we have these sisters, they're moving in the world by themselves, even though they have brothers. And we have these sisters that sometimes they have fathers, and the fathers don't even care for them properly. And so when that sister begins to have depression, or when she begins to feel alone, or when she begins to not be of the best character, then we say that she's not a good person. We have youth, young boys, that they are going through the world alone without tawjihat, without any guidance. And then when they begin to take the wrong turn, what is it that we say? Well, they're not a good Muslim. So we have to end with this reflection in mind. Being the best ummah, requires that we think about what it means to be the best ummah. Whether in our schooling, in our education, in our messages, like we said, we have to always think about how to be the best. In our relationship with Allah Ta'ala, in our salah, we have to think about how to make it the best. In our understanding of the Quran, we have to think about how is it that we can achieve the best understanding. And most of all, at the end of the day, we have to think about how to leave this world in the best of states. You understand what I mean by leaving this world in the best of states? That when it comes time for us to confront our death, we left this world knowing that everything that it was that we set out to do, we set out to do it with the best intention to please Allah Ta'ala. And we're happy to see the face of Allah Ta'ala in the hereafter. That means that we have to really believe in Jannah. That means that we have to understand that this world doesn't last forever. That this world is dar al-ibtila, dar al-taklif, wal akhirah here dar al-tashrif. This world is a world in which we have responsibilities. We can't afford to be in this world confused. And in the hereafter, Allah Ta'ala promised us to honor us and to raise our station. And it's a place in the hereafter where there's no sorrow, where there's no pain, where there's no struggle, where there's permanent happiness. Jannah is a place that we can't even imagine what it is as far as goodness is concerned. Jannah is the place that our hearts are looking for. We're never going to find Jannah in this earth. So we can't afford to confuse this world for Jannah. أقول قولي هذا واستغفر لي ولكم والحمد لله رب العالمين. اللهم صل على محمد وعلى آل محمد كما صليت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم وبارك على محمد وعلى آل محمد كما باركت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم في العالمين إنك حميد مجيد. We mentioned this recently in some of the talks that were done in the masjid, but I want to remind ourselves, how is it that we approach Allah Ta'ala? And how is it that we approach life? Are we hopeful or are we fearful? Imam al-Ghazali rahmatullahi alayhi, he laid down this principle that is extremely important. Hope is that which increases in us love. Love. But when you focus too much on fear, it increases despair. This is the importance of thinking about the mercy of Allah Ta'ala, the compassion of Allah Ta'ala, the beauty of Jannah, the forgiveness, all of the sins that we may do. Allah Ta'ala will forgive any of those sins. That's a Quranic principle. Except shirk. That's to teach us to have hope. If we don't have hope with all of the hardship that we're going through, especially this generation, may Allah bless you, with what you're living in this pandemic and so on and so forth, you have to have hope. Don't fall to the negativity. Don't fall to the despair. You have to have hope. It's only a short period of time and this will all be over. And you look back in your life and you say, I remember when we went through this. But the way to survive it is hope. When you fall into a situation that you know is wrong, the way to get out of that is hope in Allah and tawbah to Allah Ta'ala. Don't ever think that Allah Ta'ala's mercy is not open to you. It's open. Sometimes we we present Islam in such a way that people start to run away from Islam. But when you look at the Quran, every surah of the Quran except one is reminding us that Allah Ta'ala is the most merciful, the most compassionate. And in this time period, that's something that we have to always remind ourselves of. We ask Allah Ta'ala to allow us to receive that compassion and that mercy. We ask Allah Ta'ala to forgive us all of our sins. We ask Allah Ta'ala to put love between us. We ask Allah Ta'ala to give us health and protect our health. We ask for those that are on their deathbed right now that they be alleviated of their pain and their suffering. And we ask that they be increased in Iman. We ask for those who have COVID that Allah Ta'ala make it easy for them. We ask for those that have died. And we ask for those who are struggling with their mortgages and their rent and their bills, that Allah Ta'ala facilitate for them. And we ask Allah Ta'ala that you remove from us any sense of despair or fear and put hope and joy in our hearts. And we ask you to protect our youth. We ask you, Allah Ta'ala, to bring them close to you. We ask you, Allah Ta'ala, to teach them who you are. We ask Allah Ta'ala that you open their hearts to you. We ask you, Allah Ta'ala, that you descend your sakina upon them and your protection upon them. And we ask you for those parents that are struggling, Allah Ta'ala. We ask that you facilitate for them, that you bring joy and peace into their hearts. We ask you, Allah Ta'ala, to make it easy for them. We ask you, Allah Ta'ala, for all of the single mothers that are struggling. We ask you, Allah Ta'ala, that you facilitate for them. We ask you, Allah Ta'ala, to make it easy for them. And we ask you for all of the refugees in the world from the Muslim community and from other than the Muslim community. We ask that you alleviate their conditions and their situation. We ask you, Allah Ta'ala, to grant us trust in you. Allah Ta'ala, we ask you to die in the state of Islam. Aqimus Salah.
الله أكبر الله أكبر أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح قد قامت الصلاة قد قامت الصلاة الله أكبر الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله
الله أكبر. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا صراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. والعصر إن الإنسان لفي خسر إلا الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات وتواصوا بالحق وتواصوا بالصبر. الله سمع الله لمن حمده. الله 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 أكبر. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. قل هو الله أحد الله الصمد لم يلد ولم يولد ولم يكن له كفوا أحد. الله أكبر. سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله.